How are
morning,
you?
good afternoon for you. Hi, good.
Good morning, afternoon. We are talking to you live from Amsterdam. Is that where you are today?
Yeah, I'm in Amsterdam.
Awesome, great. I figured you were there, but and I think this new reality of people finding places where they maybe can be most productive, where they're closer to family. I know some people have been moving around a little bit during the pandemic. So,
I've been stationary here.
Yeah. Same here too, out of the Bay Area in California. So first of all, thank you so much for joining me in curious conversation today. It's a wonderful to have you here.
Thank you for having me. It's a great pleasure always to see you and to speak to you.
I feel the same way. Well, as I shared with you, one of my intentions for these conversations is that I have so many wonderful people that I get to work with and know in this space of sustainability in the fashion industry, apparel, textile. You're at the top of the list. And I just felt that I felt it would be wonderful to open up conversations that we get to have. Like if you and I jumped on an impromptu call, this is what we would talk about. So for our audience who's listening, some live streaming now and some who will hear this recording later, I just want to share a little bit about you, Adriana, and how you and I came to know each other. I think there are so many wonderful things about you that we're going to dive into about this conversation. But we met through my work at the Cradle to Cradle Products Innovation Institute and your work at G-Star, the amazing denim company, jeans denim company out of the Netherlands. And how many years ago was that?
Probably 5 or something.
Yeah. It
feels
4 or
like 5 at least. Actually, it feels like 10, but
you know what? It actually was 2014 when we launched on the stage in New York with the Fashion Positive Initiative.
Then it was also like 2013. I think you came to our office before.
So I'm going to say 8 years. Yeah, I think it's been 8 years. So for those listening, Adriana was really key in being part of the team that translated sustainability and specifically the idea of a circular economy and circular cradle to cradle products in denim at G-Star into the company. And your background both in design and in sustainability really helped you kind of be a person that could champion that internally. I mean, am I accurately describing sort of the role that you had within G-Star?
Yeah. I mean, I was a first designer, but then my passion for sustainability brought it all together. And that's how the new design came about.
Absolutely. So you and I have reminisced before, but we had this great sort of conversation in New York. I think we were in New York when we were really talking about what we were going to do together around the vision of building a brand around cradle to cradle principles. Like tell me about sort of that experience for you as we were sort of go back in time and dive into that visioning dinner that we had, that conversation that we had.
I mean, that was amazing because it was you, me, and Annie. I think we were sitting together, and for the first time, because I mean, like, you know, this whole cradle to cradle philosophy, I was inspired by it, you know, since 2005, since I read the book, and I was always trying to see how I can implement it into my work, and just meeting you two and having these conversations felt like, you know, we are soulmates in a way that, you know, often you're misunderstood. So it was really refreshing to sit down with people that, you know, are on the same page and that just kind of we inspired each other to move forward with the work and like bouncing off ideas. It was just a very lively, energetic conversation that, you know, kind of energize us all to continue doing our work. So that was my experience. I really felt like, yes, I'm not the only one.
Absolutely. Well, and it's interesting because Annie, who you reference, is Annie Gullingsrud, and she came to work with me at Cradle to Cradle to help build the Fashion Positive Initiative, and that was the experience that Annie and I had when I interviewed her for the job. Was you know, it was supposed to be like a 45-minute hour discussion, and 3 hours later, as we're diving into like design strategies and everything, it's like, whoa, philosophically we match. And to me, what's the best part about this work is being able to find like-minded individuals, because this is hard, and we're retooling, rebuilding, in some cases disrupting the way things are being done. And that doesn't happen easily. And we meet a lot of people along the way who are good people with good intentions, but they're maybe not as wired to be as courageous or to go in as bold. And I think one of the experiences that I have had of you all along is one of great courage and great passion to say, I'm going to stand behind, my beliefs. And I think that's what kind of came through for both of us at the beginning, or at least on my end.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess I always saw the sustainability and the circularity as an avenue of innovation rather than a limitation. And we all know that innovation is vital in moving forward. So it seems like once you have a natural click within your heart and your mind about what you want to do, you become intrinsically guided, and suddenly your focus shifts from instead of how onto what. And somehow from there, you magically gravitate towards kindred spirits and that share your vision. And that's what's happened to me and you and Annie and many other people that we know in this industry and in the circles. And then you start to engage with others, you work together, and collaboratively, you really figure out the how. Yeah. And of course, naturally, in this journey, we also ran into a lot of walls and skepticism. And in those moments, I think it's very important to tune out the noise and not let anyone drown out your inner voice in a way. And this trend, try to find a nice way to educate the naysayers by showing the possibilities and how they can be part of it. And this helps everyone get on board. So it's a pretty much like a collaboratively spirited journey.
Yeah. What you're reminding me of is a saying that you sometimes hear in this work, which is, that which does not bring you alive is too small for you. And one could also be said of individuals. And I want to be cautious that isn't like anything that's derogatory or shaming or anything about other people and where they are on their journey. But I think all of us need to find people who sort of match where we are so we can up level each other. And that's how this work has to happen, is that we get energized through individuals, and that we're going to say, wow, what you're saying is really bringing me alive. It's like reading a great book or seeing a great film where you think, I thought I was the only one who thought that. So when you meet people that say that and you go, oh, you think that too? It's like you have to lean in, because that's where we're going to start unlocking and solving things together, I think, and accelerating it.
Yeah, totally. That's absolutely what's necessary. Aligning our frequencies and then pushing forward.
Exactly. So let's talk a little bit about that for you, which is, I'm always curious to know, how did individuals get turned on to this work? Was it, first of all, when did sustainability, or the concept of, how did you define it for yourself around this work? When were you first seated with that? Is that something that, as a child, or the way you were raised, or did you have an awakening? And then I'm also curious to know, was it the environmental piece that woke? Was it the innovation piece? Like what got you hooked in this work?
I think, first of all, just how I wanted to become a designer in the first place. Since I was a little kid, I always loved looking at the arts and crafts and touching textiles. So I remember every other Friday waiting for this newspaper that had like a little spread with the paper dolls. I enjoyed really collecting them and spending countless hours drawing and making designs for them. So that was at early age. And as a teenager, I was growing up in war-torn ex-Yugoslavia, and I've always found refuge in sketching the clothes and browsing the art history books. Ever since then, I've dreamed of becoming a fashion designer. So my family was fortunate enough in the mid-90s to come to the US, and that's where I continue to combine my passion through the studies and personal life. When it comes to sustainability, it's I think it has to do a lot with my upbringing, inspiring people that I met along the way, and the books that have crossed my path. So my family was always mindful regarding environment and nature, and we always knew at least where our food came from. I remember shopping with my mom on those Saturday farmers markets, and she would know many of them by names, and she would even sometimes organize little tours to go visit the farmers. And also my father, in the late 80s, he started up his own plastic recycling plant because he really saw potential in using waste as a resource. Then later, during my first internship in Italy, which is, I think now, 20 years ago. Oh my goodness, time flies. I worked with Clarice Melunas. She's a costume designer from Vienna Opera. And together we created all the pieces from recycled materials. So that was impressive to me, to just like completely take things that are existed, reconstruct them, build new things. And a year later, when I came to Drexel to finish my last year, I combined those learnings with my love of forms and textures found in the nature, and that all resulted in a senior collection that was made entirely from repurposed materials. Oh, wow. But I think aside from my upbringing and the studies, the biggest turning point was, reading the Cradle to Cradle, remaking the way that we make things. Yeah. This book has really left like a lifelong impression on me and has shaped my career and life ever since. So that's how it all came together.
I identify we will reference that book, and for those who will put it in the comments, a link to it. For those who don't know about it, it really is almost like reading the truth, because it's not something that demonizes or shames. It really just provides, based on abundance theory, based on the concept that we can live within planetary limitations, we can actually thrive within them if we emulate nature, where everything is a nutrient for a future system, and there is no shame or good or bad. It's just about how nature utilizes materials for continuous flow, whether it's the relationship between water and the lake and the rain and the oceans, or whether it's the oxygen and the carbon dioxide. It's like, or it's the dying carcass of a bird on the ground under a tree. Like, everything is a nutrient into the system, and death becomes life. And
food is waste. Waste is food.
There is no concept of waste.
There is no concept of waste.
Food. Waste equals
food. That is what like really this idea of, and also like learning that waste is actually a design flaw. And for me, like reading a book as a designer, I felt compelled to do something about it. Being obsessed with denim, I said like, okay, let's figure out on how to design denim in a new way. So it was really, that's something that shaped me, and I'm glad that happened.
Okay. So what I love is your upbringing, your family, like your mom taking you guys to the farms. That's early supply chain discovery. You're like digging into like, where does my food come from? Which is then the conversation that I think that we're asking so many of the people in the apparel industry, not only at brand level, retailer level, but also consumer level, which is, who made my clothes? Where is this coming from? How is it made? So I love that you sort of have that food and agriculture kind of framework that helps.
There was another thing actually that my dad, he later had on a business where he would go to the villages there were these craftswomen in Serbia, in these villages, like famous sweaters, and he would really handpick them from the women and take them into the city and sold them throughout different cities. So it was really like, I don't know. It was very personal touch to everything.
I love that.
My family has done.
So it was personal, and I think that's the key too. Is that this work has been personal to you.
Yeah.
So a decade ago, you show up at G Star, and how did you say from the beginning, I'm going to be pushing you guys really hard on circularity?
No. I mean, actually, what as I mentioned before, I always saw sustainability and circularity as an avenue of innovation. And G-Star I always wanted to work with because innovation is at the core of its DNA. It's always been. So for me to come in, they hired me as a women's wear designer and raw sustainable designer. So it was really like a natural evolution. It was an amazing platform. Even when I was living in New York and working with many celebrities, I was, looking at the G-Star Raw fashion shows at the New York Fashion Week. And I was like, I really love these guys. I want to work with them. And somehow that all came together. I guess once you make that decision, and I mean, I'm not saying that everything was easy. It took time, to build things together and to prove to make a proof of concept, to design the new technologies and all these things. But I think I was really lucky that I that we had a common vision and common ground of innovation, and innovation can be interpreted in so many different ways.
Yeah. Is it true that you said at one point, if we don't go into this work more deeply, I can't stay here?
Yes, of course.
Yes. That getting back to the theme of courage, I think that's.
I never said that. Said that, but I did think it.
You did think it, yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so you didn't actually walk into
no, I
boss's
didn't,
office
because there was no need to say anything like that, because I already felt that the platform is there. We just need to mold it, shape it, and push it through.
Great.
But internally, if something didn't work, I really love to work with people who are serious about circularity and sustainability, and who really want to push things forward. So
what was
easy?
Yeah, great. What was the hardest part of doing the work, in your opinion? Of like, and by the way, for those listening, like the cradle to cradle methodology also meant that you were looking at, can it be upcycled? Or is the chemistry aligned in a way that we want to push this forward into future cycles? So it's material health, material reuse, and then it looks at the production facilities, the water, energy, and social impact, and it has a strategy for continuous improvement to improve and continue to increase towards 100% renewable, 100% drinking water, quality water coming out of the facility output, and then also social and labor that was aligned towards, driving the right worker livelihood and social labor practices within the industry. So that being said, for you to take on that work and to really look at it as a framework to push through to the fabric level at the company, and then ultimately to the finished product itself, what was the hardest part?
At first, material health. I guess that was the most difficult one, because it really requires unparalleled levels of transparency. Because you're not only looking what's not inside, you're looking at every molecule that is inside of the indigo, the thread, the yarn, the finishing. You pretty much look at all the components and what's inside. Not only you're looking at a molecular level, but also how these molecules interact with each other, like if they produce any harm to the environment, like with the workers. So to get that information, you really have to go dive deep into the supply chain. And also you had to work with people who are ready to invest if something is not I wanted everything to be at gold level, and I was really proud that we actually had material health score platinum, which meant there was zero risk for people and planet in the chemistry of our product. So looking so deeply, it's very important to have your supply chain be ready to also to optimize if something is not good. And first of all, to completely disclose what's there, which is, I'm not talking just a fabric supplier, I'm talking the fabric supplier, really going deep. So that kind of idea of not idea, the complete transparency and also will to improve if something is not up to the framework standard. That's something that is not so easy to do, because of course it requires new research, new investment, adjustments to maybe the machines. It's in the end, it's an investment for the future. It's an investment on how to do things better. Just in the beginning, it's always difficult to introduce people to something that seems that could work but may not work, depending, because the standard is so intricate. It has those 5 different categories that you have to look at. So even if your material health is platinum and you had bronze on social fairness, you're falling down to bronze. So it's really
it's rigorous.
It's very rigorous. But it's also a beauty about it, because it really pushes you to continuously improve.
Well, it's a framework that I bring into Apparel Impact Institute all the time, because I know that the programs that we're running around energy efficiency, water, chemical efficiency, elimination of coal, scaling of renewables, are the things we would have been asking a company like G-Star to do in yarn prep, fabric prep, cut and sew along the stages. And so, I can see now how my work and what I'm funding and scaling under Apparel Impact Institute plugs into a larger holistic roadmap of continuous improvement. And I think that's where what I aim to do is help defragment all multitude of initiatives out there and really put them into a roadmap in a way that we can start to fund and scale the right pieces. And then a cradle-to-cradle certification becomes so much easier, because a company like G-Star can call and say, okay, we now need to do these things to get from basic bronze, silver, gold to platinum. We have to keep improving. What are the scalable solutions? Is there funding available? Is there investment or lending for some of these CapEx improvements? And so plugging these pieces in, so that what I'm saying is, G-Star's a pioneer to have done that without an organization like AII back here organizing all the pieces. You did it on your own. And I'm hoping that we can sort of be a tool and a resource for those, whether they're using the cradle to cradle certification program or whether they're just taking on their own internal continuous improvement program and reaching year-over-year milestones, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you really, in order to scale, you need to share and guide. I mean, the same thing with the Cradle Products Innovations Materials Library. Whatever was developed goes in there, so people have an access to the library. Oh, this already exists. Maybe if I can combine it with this, then I can also move forward. I mean, even when we made our first fabric, we made the technology and the fabric open source, so indigo technology. So not only that other brands could use it, but other mills could adapt those clean indigo practices from their own end. Absolutely. So we all have to do our part and somehow connect and help each other, because nobody can. We have to really, really continue to work together on a much larger scale than we have been. But I think we are.
I think so too. Working with you and on that project and bringing that level of transparency was kind of new for Cradle to Cradle, because a lot of those assessments would stay within the project. So being able to open it up and say, hey, they got a dye that's working really well over there. If we pull that in here, hey, are there any elastines that anyone has looked at? Oh yeah, G-Star worked on that. Let's. So the ability to be in collective action and move sustainability out of competitive advantage and into a more shared resource approach is the only way we're going to go faster and accelerate this work.
But that's how we started the Fashion Positive as well.
That is 100%.
Yeah.
100%. And it's the same philosophy I'm bringing into Apparel Impact Institute, which is great. So
perfect. We need seeds everywhere.
We're pollinating. So, all right. So you mentioned earlier a little bit about books, and let me come back to that. G-Star, let's close the chapter on that, because you did actually leave the company in the past year. Can you tell me about what you're up to next? What's happening with you?
Well, I mean, last year was a crazy pandemic year, lots of learnings.
Yes.
I guess first months of the pandemic somehow became a total blur, just like for many others. I wasn't used to being in one place for more than a couple of weeks and not interacting with people. So I noticed that being so much at home, I had tendency to primarily focus on work and operated on all time zones. And at certain points, I saw your actually mindful Insta posts, as well as like Annie being busy with indigo crafts and other people taking on all kinds of different hobbies. And I was like, this is very inspiring. So I decided to make some adjustments myself. And in that period, I also read the book 5 a.m. Club, which had helped me to like install some healthy stay-at-home habits in a way.
Yeah.
And from May onwards, I felt more in balance, and I learned to pause, to reflect, and to make kind of an inventory of what's been done and how I want to move forward. So looking back after nearly a decade, so working at G-Star, and I saw that I have instilled the sustainability and circularity into sourcing, design, and product development. So in October, I left the company. I sort of had a similar shift as Claire and Eva. So it just was a time for a new phase in a way for myself. So since then, I have been focusing on like taking a little break and doing research. And I also enrolled at the MIT Sloan Executive Program. So I see this period. Thank you. So I see this period as like a time to update my personal and professional toolbox in order to move the things in the future. So I have, so then, so I'm starting a Closed Circular Lab, which is it's a platform that I created in order to continue my action research and circular product innovation work on consultancy basis. So again, purpose is just to guide others, demonstrate possibilities, and scale circular economy practices. So that's something that, my next chapter is. So I will just go, I still have a great relationship with G-Star, but I need to expand also into other areas.
I love it. Well, you just made me realize that I did interview Eva and she left Global Fashion Agenda, and I did interview Claire and she left Stella McCartney, both to go on and do amazing things. And same with you. So that's an interesting thing. I'm glad this is not happening after I do the podcast, that people leave their company, unless it's a good thing. And in this case, I think it is a good thing that all of you are sort of evaluating your lives and looking at, I've spent a decade, give or take, doing this one thing. Yeah. And I think that makes a lot of sense. So tell me, book influences, what I was bring on earlier. You just mentioned the 5 a.m. Club.
Yeah, the 5 a.m. Club. It's a Robin Sharma. It's about, pretty much, take like very simple kind of way how to lead your life. I mean, we all have it inside how to lead our lives, but there are some nice diagrams on how to structure yourself. So like the first part of your morning, the first hour is the most important hour. I mean, they suggest you get up at 5 a.m. I make my 5 a.m. maybe like a 7 or 8 a.m. instead. But there's this very nice trick, like a 20-20-20 rule. So in the beginning, so first 20 minutes you should use to do something physical, like some kind of exercise. The next 20 minutes you should do some meditation or journaling, have a reflective period. And the next 20 minutes, you should just read whatever you want, be it for your work or be it for your hobbies or something like that. So that first hour is your golden hour. So I think in this time and age of, pandemic, when you actually are at home, I needed something. I needed some kind of structure to organize myself. Otherwise, I was working all the time. And then this really inspired me during the pandemic, I guess. So it's a very thick book, but it has a very good diagrams if you don't want to read it through. There are just some different explanations, also how your brain works, what kind of chemistry goes on into your brain. It goes on like what kind of switches, neural impulses. It gets a bit technical, but it was a great read. inspiring one too.
Well, you've inspired me. I'm going to get a copy because I think that just like cradle to cradle, that sounds like the truth to me. And and when I do employ these tactics in part, it always improves my strategic mind, my general mood and outlook. So thanks for making me and everyone listening aware of that book. I'm going to take a look at it.
Yeah,
any other influences you want to share, or things that are shaping the way you're thinking and operating?
I really like during my high school years in the US, I fell in love with the American Transcendentalist movement. So, this movement praised the innate good of people in nature. So I always loved reading Emerson and Henry David Thoreau, and I often do revisit them. A great website that I've been following for years, maybe 4 or 5 years or so, is brainpickings.org. And it's really has inspiring essays and experts from various books. So you can see a bit of an overview, but then you can dive deeper into different subjects that interest you.
Brainpickings.org?
Yeah, brainpickings.org.
Great. All right. Yeah. We'll add this into the comments in YouTube.
Yeah, and there's a really cool podcast that I like from Lex Friedman. He's an MIT AI researcher, but he brings different topics into the, into various speakers, so you have things about love, power, philosophy, history, neuroscience, consciousness, AI, all kinds of different things.
I love that. I think I think this year for me, and I'm hearing it from others too, has been a really good year to kind of bring in new content, new ways of thinking, leverage books, podcasts. The slowdown has given us an opportunity to actually maybe even receive more. And I think that's in some ways building a little banks to the rivers for our lives, but at the same time, then looking at what content we do want to allow in and be more mindful about.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Amazing. Well, I know we're at the half hour, which is great. I was hoping we would go long, and I could keep talking for another half hour with you easily.
I know.
I know. So I'm sad to say goodbye, but more of these to come. Maybe we'll regroup down the road and have a continuation of this conversation.
Definitely. Yeah. We speak soon. Thank you for having me, Louis.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Lots
Great
of blessings
to see you as always.
Be safe in Amsterdam during the time. Stay warm. Lots of love.
Lots of love. Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Bye.